Hello, I'm Father Dominic, and this video series is meant to help viewers understand who God is and what the Catholic Church teaches. Before we get into the heavy-duty, controversial topics, it's important that we start with the basics. Now, this helps all of us to have a familiar foundation to build on once we get to the more controversial topics. And so let's start at the beginning by asking who made us and why. Anyone watching who would be around my parents' age and older will remember the Baltimore Catechism. It was basically a universal textbook on the Catholic faith used in pretty much every Catholic school and CCD or religious education program in the United States. Now, the Baltimore Catechism was more or less a long list of questions and answers. The first of these questions was, who made us? God made us. Well, who is God? God is a supreme being, infinitely perfect, who made all things and keeps them in existence. There's a whole lot in that answer. God is a supreme being. Now, there's no denying that. But what does that actually mean? There's 5 important attributes of God for God to be a supreme being. So if God's a supreme being, these are the 5 attributes that God must have. First, God must be all good. If God is supreme, then God is the creator of the whole universe. For God to be a creator, then God must be all good, since only goodness can create. Evil destroys. Therefore, God must be all good. The second is that God must be all-powerful. For God to be supreme, then there can only be one God. You can't have a God of rain and a God of fire and a God of whatever. God must have all the power. God can't share that power, or else God wouldn't be supreme. God would only be part powerful, or you would have multiple gods who have a certain percentage of power. Then God, again, wouldn't be supreme. God must be all-powerful. God must be all-knowing. Now, this doesn't take away from our free will. God, because of His goodness, has given creation free will, and we choose to love and serve God or not to. So how is God all-knowing if God really doesn't know what we will choose? Well, God sees all possible outcomes of our choices. If I have a red pill and a blue pill in front of me, because God is all-knowing, God knows all possible outcomes regardless of which pill I choose. God knows what will happen if I choose the blue pill and if I choose the red pill. However, God still doesn't know which pill I will choose. God is all-knowing and still gives us free will out of God's abundant goodness. The fourth is that God is all-present. God is in all places and throughout all time. This is pretty self-explanatory. God is never absent. And the fifth one is that God is eternal. Now, while God is in all places and at all times, God is also outside of space and time. God is the unmovable mover, the uncaused cause. God is. That's it. God always has been and always will be. Now, it's important to know these 5 attributes of God, because once we know who God is, then we also know who God is not. God is not the reason people die and evil exists. God can't create evil because God is all good. For God to be all good, then God cannot be anything except good. When we feel alone and lost, we often blame God for abandoning us. Well, God is all-present. God can never abandon us. You see why it's important to know who God is? So, we go to the next question. Why did God make us? The Baltimore Catechism says that God made us to show forth His goodness and to share with us His everlasting happiness in heaven. See, because God is all good, or as St. John would say in his first letter, chapter 4, verse 8, God is love. Because of this love and goodness which creates, God needed to create a universe to share that love with. Again, goodness and love create. They never destroy. Destruction comes from what is evil. God created us out of love. We read in Genesis chapter 1 that humanity was God's greatest creation. We are God's greatest creation because only we can love in a similar way that God can. God even made us co-creators by continuing the creation of the human race. And we do this to continue showing and sharing with others the love of God. So who made us? Love itself made us. God is love. Why did love make us? To share love, who is God, with everyone we meet. And how do we learn to share that love, who is God? Well, continue watching these short videos each week to find out. God bless you all.